Carpo's Journal, February 8th, 2023, Wednesday, 9:46 p.m. Here I sit, woe is me. In my garage, you see. Should I have some poetry ready for you and me? I don't really have a point to any of this. The reason I make videos is pretty obvious. I like to hear myself talk. There's more to it than that, but that's what a lot of people would think. Hearing the amount of videos I've made, I was going to say vlog entry number 4,500 and something, which is about where I'm at here. Tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about laughing at yourself, being able to laugh at yourself, and how important it is. Being able to poke fun at anything that you take seriously is probably one of the most crucial things to, I think, happiness in life. To be able to laugh things off and not take things seriously. Now, the reason I'm here to talk about this specific topic is not to say nothing should be taken seriously. It's completely different from acting serious about it. So, to give you an example, if you disagree with someone on something, it might be a very serious topic, but you don't have to take their opinion or idea of it seriously, nor do you have to take the topic itself seriously. I guess a great example would be voting. To some people, they say voting is one of the most important things you'll do in your life, and voting is what their life is about, getting people to vote. And if you were to say, well, I don't vote, to them that's a travesty. But to you, that just might be like, whatever, you know. Regardless of how it may or may not impact your personal life, the fact is, ignoring voting isn't generally going to have any direct effect on you beyond your missing vote within that system, if that makes sense. I guess a better example might be news coverage. And I don't want to talk about any current events because there are far too many and they're always controversial. Many people are easily swayed by any type of media coverage that, you know, shows something either emotional, whether it be anger or sadness. There was a large quake the other day in Syria and Turkey. It was horrendous. I mean, I think they're up to like 11K on the casualties, and it's just, I'm sure it'll be far beyond that. And in areas where, you know, there's horrendous acts of war and violence, pestilence, whatever it might be, there's just this utter sadness that people have for these communities, which is fine. However, if you did not have the internet, if you did not have any media coverage of these things, then they would never be a concern of yours at all. Neither would many of the issues in other states. I've noticed a lot more people concerned about senators of other states because they're in the media, right? So-and-so from North Carolina did this, or so-and-so from Florida did that. And I'm like, well, I live in Washington State. I'll just mind what's going on over here. I mean, sure, the federal issue is totally different, but I'm not concerned with what goes on in Congress as much as a lot of people. And it surprises me that so many people actually get visibly distraught and disturbed by what goes on in politics. And I want to say it's not benefiting anyone, yourself included, to be upset about these things. But I feel like a lot of folks somewhat take it upon themselves to feel like kind of the, you know, the warrior for truth, for whatever side they take. And I think that that's noble in certain instances, especially when you're facing, you know, fascism versus freedom, and, you know, you want to fight for what's true. But usually that takes a little more than just checking a box, because in the U.S. we have crony capitalism where whoever you vote for, they're both funded by the same interests. It's just how things work here, and you can't get around that. So there's corruption everywhere, and if you dwell on it too long, it's just like worrying about starvation, or wars or earthquakes or whatever might be going on in the world. If you start worrying about things that don't really matter to you so much, then it bites you in the butt. Another example, because this is off the cuff, popped into my mind just now was the Federal Reserve and the money supply, which is just a complete mess. But among that, we have in the US for the federal government the national debt. And I'll notice, people talk about this as if it's a concern to them. Oh man, we're reaching our debt ceiling of $30 trillion dollars or whatever it might be. But they say these things as if they really understand the implications of it. And I'm not saying a few don't, but I know that of all the vast amount of research that I've done on a lot of topics, because I'm fascinated with everything, everything from economics and money, and I've read a couple of economics books. Phenomenal book is The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, and it's about how tax is basically illegal in the U.S. and it goes on to explain. It's like a 700-800 page book. It's pretty big. I got most of the way through it, but it's a great look into how people are duped into thinking certain things matter more than they do. And I guess what I'm getting at here is that is a real concern. The money system. It is something people should be worried about. But they end up being worried about the wrong things. People are so desperate that they are investing in crypto, which can be extremely volatile. And the dollar is horrible right now, of course, because of inflation. And so, point being, not to get too far off track, those things really do affect how we live our lives, how much money we get, our wages, the price of food, all these different commodities, which in turn, of course, globalization and, free trade has had some benefits, but in the end, when you have other countries manufacturing your goods and all the U.S. companies have gone overseas and then they shut down manufacturing there, and there's trade issues and transportation problems, logistical issues, we end up with shortages of things like semiconductors. And those are the things that we should be concerned about, are the things that directly affect our lives, like our income, our state, our local government and state, and how we are dealing with poverty, how we're dealing with homelessness and drug addiction. And it can be daunting because most people don't want to deal with politics at all. But that is something that I think there's a huge difference in opinion on whether, voting even really fucking matters anymore. As the individual, it's easy to see people have lost their desire to participate in politics, and I think rightly so. So I think at this point, if you want to concern yourself with politics, that's okay. That's your choice. But I believe it's an unhealthy thing to worry about people that are irrelevant, to listen to which flavor of the week, like Santos or anybody else that the media wants to talk about. I mentioned that because my buddies asked me about what I think about Santos the other day. I said, I honestly have not seen a single news article about him. My wife mentioned something, and then I looked up and read an article, I think, something about him in Brazil as a drag queen or something, but I thought that should work for him. But I know nothing about the guy. I don't know any of the controversies and don't care because it's not part of my life. But fucking Americans love drama. And maybe I shouldn't say Americans. Maybe it's a human thing. Maybe it's just something that's ingrained within us. Maybe just like we have this built-in reservoir of stress and anxiety, that we used to have fear and we would have fight or flight to escape danger in the wild. Now we've carried that on. Maybe we've also done that with fucking things like, fuck. God damn it. I lost my train of thought. I'm going to pause this for 5 seconds and remember. At any rate, I really just needed a bong hit and a drink of coffee. But, so good. Living as an American with my latte here in my Grateful Dead cup. Um, Enjoying my life. I don't have a lot to complain about. And that's what I'm getting at here. You know, the politics, the point I was trying to only make was that we choose to immerse ourselves in politics that really aren't relevant to us. Deal with local shit. Worry about your own city or the city next to you. I mean, God, complaining about shit doesn't get you anywhere. Take action. Do something. You know, when COVID hit and restaurants shut down, my wife, you know, was out of work like I was, and we were just chilling at home with the kids who were out of school, trying to do homeschool on the, you know, it was a nightmare. Remote learning bullshit. Complete nightmare. I still have a long video to do on that topic. But my wife was restless and she said, well, fuck, why are the freeways so filthy? And she called the city and asked them, why aren't you guys cleaning any of this shit up? And because it was horrible. And they said, oh, well, we can't get crews to come out because you can't sit next to each other in the van. They're too close because of social distancing and this whole excuse. So she started doing it on her own. She got the city to fund her bags. And I remember her and I walked up one weekend and cleaned up two sides of the freeway. Uh, like, you know, like a quarter-mile stretch, half-mile stretch that was like 200 feet wide, a huge strip. And felt really good about it, you know, filled out like 3 or 4 big trash bags, you know. And there are a lot of people who do shit like that and want to help out in their own local area. That is so much more valuable than your vote in a box. Not that that doesn't matter too, but I think that more people who take action locally, that kind of shit is inspiring as hell. And I give her full credit for that one. I only helped her out a bit, but she started a whole group and everything. Fucking props. And things like that inspire other people. And what I'm getting at here is that I think most people want to do the right thing. Most people want to help out in their local communities. Most people want something worth fighting for, to protect their neighborhoods, their areas. And unfortunately, this is a side effect of what's been going on in the last, you know, decade or two. The police force, you know, the police have got increased budgets, you know, more vehicles, more armored tanks, shit like that. But they're doing less for the citizens. They've isolated themselves, just like many of the citizens have pitted themselves against the police because of that situation, that the cops aren't to be trusted. They plant drugs, they lie, and a lot of them do, and they cover each other, you know, each other's asses. I hate to say that after the last couple of years, no matter what people have to say about the, you know, protests in the past, in 2020, there are a lot more police around the country who are taking accountability for things that they've done wrong, which anyone who doesn't pay attention doesn't realize that that is an issue, but only if you live in a place with police. Those are things, you know, with a, I should say, a bad part of town with police. And yes, of course, there's people, everyone has bias, but it's not just a racial thing. Um, a lot of people get their doors kicked in for things that they didn't even do, and the cops won't replace it. They can take your money at the airport if you're carrying more than like 10 grand and not give it back and never charge you with the crime. It's a crazy world we live in, but a crazy nation as well. And you would think the US would be more, I don't know, and not to go off on a tangent about all the problems here, but I guess what I'm pointing out or trying to point out is that there are things to be aware of and be concerned about. There are issues in our society that the more informed you are about topics, all topics, like a generalist, then the better your life will be. Like, the easier it will be to know if somebody's bullshitting you, to read people's lies if you know more about a topic than they do, right? And not get screwed over. And it's a double-edged sword, right? I guess, is that the right term? I hate that term. I always get it wrong. Anyway, having a lot of knowledge is great, but at the same time, it can be kind of depressing because if you know too much about a topic, it can kind of ruin the fun, you know, the magic. That is true. But generally, I find that overall, I benefit more from the more I learn. you kind of distance yourself from certain people when you disagree with them about a topic and say, well, no, this is the scientific data, and people don't want to read it, they just get angry about it. And so you kind of just want to be ignorant and not give a shit about things. So what I'm getting at here is that we have to decide how informed we want to be on certain topics and how much we want to discuss it with other people, and how much we care about arguing online, for example, or with other people, how much a discussion is even worth having. And it seems that it's getting worse because, you have a cesspool like Twitter where it's just people talking, typing over each other. Well, no, this is true, and trying to be the most smartass. And it's not all of Twitter, of course. Twitter's just a platform that really breeds a lot of that. And YouTube has it too. All platforms do. A lot of garbage and a lot of BS. But anyway, you can't help but come across some of these subjects and topics when you are basically, if you read the news or if you just peruse the internet, you're going to run across certain topics that are concerning. And you can't really escape it. And even if you do try to ignore it, then people will talk about it at work or family members. And you're kind of forced to. You're forced to have an opinion about various topics, whether it's political or religious, which I haven't even got into at all. I mean, that really requires a video all its own, which I've made several, and I don't like to talk about it. And I thought about this the other day, it's like, I don't like to ostracize people, and a lot of folks believe what they believe. And who am I to tell them they're wrong? I'm not. But even mentioning it to some people is extremely triggering. So, I don't know. Talking about topics like what's important, I guess, is very subjective. Because if you are a Christian, you would think the only thing that's important really is the Bible. So that would be, yeah. Anyway, these are just some random thoughts of mine. I just wanted to say thanks for coming by and listening, and just wanted to kind of have a ramble. I'll talk to y'all next time, and I don't know, give somebody a hug. Yeah, they probably need it. Peace.